And welcome to the Diablo podcast, the podcast for Diablo diehards, Diablo tryhards, Diablo min-maxers, and Diablo casuals. Hardcore and softcore alike. We're going to touch on everything Diablo here. I am your host, Xanth, and I am joined today by my lovely co-host and only guest, Nineball.
Oh, hi.
And we are brought to you by PureDiablo.com, your home for an expansive wiki, an ever-growing community, and, of course, this podcast. Um, so it's a small crew tonight, and when we first set this up, my goal was I need to pin down Nineball to talk about Diablo because I'm going to lose him very soon. Um, Armored Core, and first, let's state some obvious things. So I think we got a little flack for the on the last episode. We are gamers who love Diablo, but we also do play other games. I think it's silly not to do that because that's a quick way to burn out of anything. Um, and we're gonna lose Nine Ball for a foreseeable future as Armored Core 6 comes out on Friday. So how excited are you for that, Nine Ball?
Well, like I've said in the past, I've taken my name from that series, so it's near and dear to my heart. I'm pretty excited, though I am preparing myself that Nine Ball is probably not going to be in it. He hasn't been in the last few. He's had some like little like yeah, that red black thing over there. Yeah, it's a nod to Nine Ball. You just have to believe us. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. Everything that's come out so far looks interesting, and like we've only seen the first like 12 missions or the first chapter of the game that anybody's seen. So we have no idea what the rest of the game is going to look like. It's specifically, I'm ranting. I know this is a Diablo podcast talking about Armored Core, but I have to just grab anybody that will listen right now because it's always been like a mech combat game and it's cool. It's like, it's got machine guns and grenade launchers and missiles. One of the coolest aspects was always like it had a laser sword. Your left arm could be a laser sword. And then like Armored Core, I think it was 4 or 5, you get like drills and other stuff that weren't just like the laser sword or another gun. And now in this game, you've got like a dual bladed chainsaw fist sword thing that has to be mine. I have to use this. I cannot wait for it. I want to put two chainsaws onto my hand, and then combine them into like a single blade when I need to for whatever reason. I don't know. It was cool as hell and I want it. I really do.
Uh, no, absolutely. I'm very excited. I'm a big From Software fan. This will be my first Armored Core, actually. So I'm excited to kind of delve in, and I will lean on you for some expertise as I go. Shout out to Fighting Cowboy, friend of the podcast, also, who's been just slow dripping lots of great content around Armored Core, and I'm sure he's going to have a deluge once release hits.
This man was breaking the meta before the game already came out.
I
love I love the complaints before the game even released.
Um, Not surprising. He is very good at what he does. You don't get a million followers by just being a slouch. So shout out to Cowboy. Looking forward to what he's going to put out. Okay, so Armored Core side, right? If you've made it through our small little tangent here, we're going to talk Diablo, and that's all we're going to talk about from here on out. In this episode, we might talk about other things at some point, but it's mainly Diablo. So Nimble, what's your recent Diablo play been? What have you been doing?
So I'm still continuing to go through trudge along. As we talked about in the last podcast, I finished the battle pass, but I still have one more chapter to complete. I guess beforehand I had 2 chapters to complete. I still have one more chapter to complete of the seasonal journey, and that's the one where it's like I uh I'm debating which one is going to be easier of getting level 100, or I can't remember. I think one of the other one was like the PvP. And I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and do one of those. I tried doing the PvP one a little bit, but like I'm solo, and so I'm getting ganked because I'm a minion build. I'm not doing anything. But yeah, it's just basically been going through and taking I say take a little bit of the break, even though I play like every day.
Right.
But just I'll log on. I'll do like a world boss. I'll do a little bit of a Helltide. I try to gain at least half a level a day. So I'm in the 80s now. Just going through trying to play a little bit casually. Because it's kind of like I just have like a couple things to do in the game, which are getting level 100. It's like a just it's just a pure grind at this point. And so I've got 2 more months to complete it. And so I actually have been going back and playing Diablo 3 a little bit because we just had the season 29 announcement in PTR. But I haven't finished the last season because I have one more potion to unlock because the game will not drop me primals. So I farm Greater Rifts for about an hour, like every day or so, and just have zero luck getting anything. I just have to unlock that last potion, get the sweet transmog, and the game is just no, no. It's like speed running like 110s in like like 2.5 minutes, and the game just doesn't care. It's like no, you're not allowed to get primals. So I've got a little bit more time to try and complete that, but I need to hurry up.
That you bring up something kind of important. We haven't talked Diablo 3 in a while. We did get the announcements of the newest season. Obviously, there are more details to come, but we did hear about the Paragon cap, and then solo self-found mode. Today's
Mhm.
podcast isn't delving into Diablo 3, but it probably does warrant some attention in a future episode to kind of go into that and really kind of give it its due, maybe as we're getting just a little bit more details. Um, but still exciting stuff. I haven't felt the pull because I'm still very much sucked into D4. Um, Still trudging along on my druid, but then I'm just kind of getting sucked in random directions. I'll play a little bit of one character on the treadmill. I've got to play through with my son, so it's like I'll go do that. He never on his account never did uh, the campaign, so. The original plan was he would join me in the season, but then we started the season. It's like, oh, I guess we're just doing the campaign. So it's a slow process, but I'm still logging in every day, still trying to get to where I want to be, and then obviously with the druid, still trying not to die, which is relatively successful so far. Um,
Yeah.
but we'll see. Uh, Now, our playthrough aside, there's been some stuff happening. So we're going to dwell on the negative first, and then let's get to the positive. So, Leviathan, and for any other listener who's curious, it is August 22nd, but I really there's just one. It's August 22nd when we're recording this. When we set this up initially, the focus wasn't, um, it was probably more gloom and less positive. And then some news happened today that we'll get into with the announcement of the new season. But let's focus in first on the more pressing issues that we were facing prior to some announcements. Uh, First, grading was disabled. Which, Nibal, did you notice? Did you feel it? Were you noticing that you couldn't trade anything with anybody?
As I've mentioned in some of the prior episodes, this season for me has mostly been solo. I had a buddy that was going through and leveling with me like up until the 40s, and then like he got he was still feeling the burnout and such. But even barring that, prior to this, when he and I did like the grind together all the way up to 100, like literally never traded, period, like ever between us. So it's like I definitely did not notice. But then of course, one of the things that this alludes to is I knew that people were like probably out there and trading like items and such. I didn't realize that items were going for billions of gold. You
Yeah,
know,
I was kind of floored by
and
that. So for anybody listening, if you did not know, there was some form of a gold duping exploit that was out there, which then pushed a massive amount of currency into the economy. Which, when we say the economy, it's kind of weird because Nineball and myself, we're not a part of it. I don't trade. I very infrequently am interacting with other players. Um, so to find out one that that amount of currency is out there, but then also people are they're using various forms and discords to make these trades was mind-boggling. It does kind of hark back to the old kind of Diablo 2 days, in which you had D2 JSP to trade things
Mhm.
and get the stuff that you wanted. Um, I guess I don't really care as much how much gold is getting back and forth because it doesn't truly affect me. But the problem is the duping, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's the core of the issue.
and what that says, kind of going forward. Obviously, it getting fixed is a good thing, but if we go back to like the general understanding of why trading isn't happening and stuff like that, there was the general thought of to prevent stuff like this. Like you're not allowed to do this because we do. But then to see these issues crop up, eh, I don't know. Would a more robust trading system just be better? And then try and deal with all the issues that you see. I'm sure at some point during your playthrough, you've been spammed by gold selling websites, right?
If I have, I've not paid attention. I got some friend invites. I got some friend invites from a bunch of webs from it was a couple weeks in. I got a whole bunch of like friend invites. I reported all of them as spam, and I think that there was I don't remember if there was a ban wave or something like that, but then they all disappeared, and I haven't seen them this season. Period.
I still encounter them from time to time. Um, And that feels like that was part of the issue that they were trying to avoid. It just seems like it's almost unavoidable, right? And if we can, I really what I'm trying to get at is I want complete open trading at some point. I just want everything to be tradable because we're not ever going to stop it. There's going to be a gold seller, there's going to be an item seller, there's going to be something. Um, but if we can have maybe better play as a result of it, I'm for it. But maybe we won't need to when we get into kind of some of the stuff of the new season. Um, so we fixed that exploit. Everything's good. Trading's back. Feel free to trade all you want, Nine Ball. Um, but in tandem with the exploit, there's been a malaise, a general dismay in the Diablo community. Um, you can go to Reddit, you can go to all those places, and you can kind of find yourself getting wrapped up in the vitriol. And it can tilt your view, and sometimes that can affect genuine criticism. But um, it's been interesting watching it all kind of unfold, right? We're seeing less Diablo 4 streams. We're seeing less people who are really involved in Diablo come back and play it. And then we've started to hear bigger names that we normally wouldn't be critical of Diablo, to the point where Mike Ibarra felt the need to kind of come in and be like, look, we hear it, we got a bunch of stuff coming up. Don't worry. And the person we're referencing is Woody, who put out a good video kind of going over some of his concerns. And Woody has gotten a lot of crap in the past, what, 4 weeks for just being generally optimistic. So for him
Yep.
to have this, because there's a lot of hate clicks out there, right? It is so easy to hate on Diablo 4 right
Yeah.
now, um,
So
right?
that I'll save my comment for afterwards.
It is so easy to generate clicks. Like if we go back, and by the way, we don't generate clicks, so I'm not worried about it. Um, like it's fine. Uh, but you go back, what? It is August 22nd, so that's for you, Leviathan. We go back
Again.
again one more time. Uh, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, it was really easy to generate clicks just on hype for Diablo, right? Now it's more easy to get people to your Diablo content by just crapping on it. Um, and that kind of sucks. Like it does suck. I'm not saying that criticism is invalid and the game needs to be criticized. That's totally fair. But just crapping on things for the sake of crapping on them, just do better. But anyways, Woody comes out. He's got a good video. We've got this general malaise kind of lingering in the community, and we've got 2 more months of this season. Um,
I
so,
I
Nigel, what are
do
your
have to
thoughts
stop
around
you.
this? Yeah.
I do have to stop you right there. Are you purposefully quoting Diablo 3?
That's fair. That's
It's an
fair.
imbalance of humors, I believe is the next line. Yeah, good old Leoric.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I will fully admit that I have not yet watched Woody's video. I've just, it's like definitely like one of those things that you're talking about, like tilting your perceptions and such, with like in general, that I just really haven't been watching like a lot of Diablo content. I've just been doing my thing, and going through playing the game, and that's kind of like how I've been trying to like reset myself. So I've seen it, I've seen the reactions, and like what you said with like Mike Ibarra going through, commenting, and committing to like more positive changes going through and going forward. And without watching the video, I think I'm pretty comfortable in saying uh, everything that Woody has to say is completely valid, and coming from a place of love. Because he really likes the franchise, he really likes the game, and as you said, he's generally a very optimistic and positive person. Um, and he's definitely one of those ones that I can pretty much trust. Even if I disagree with his opinion, I can trust that anything that he's going through and saying, he's gonna have he's he's not just saying it, for just to get clicks or something like that. That he's got a data and spreadsheets to back it up. He's that type of guy, and I definitely put a lot of weight in his opinions. Um, but there definitely are some things that are wrong and are lacking in the game. There's no shortage of it, really. Every layer that you go through and pull back, and I want to say that there was like a review that we had, where we maybe went a little bit too critical with some things at the beginning of season one, which that's fair. Everybody has their opinion on it and such, but sometimes you do have to get critical, because it's something that you enjoy, it's something that you love, that you want to see do better and grow, as both of us here are still going through and playing the game. That's what we want, that's what criticism is there for. But like the comment that you made about like hate clicks, like literally there was something on Twitter that I saw earlier today that just the opening line was Diablo 4 is a failure. Period. And it's just like it was just such you know obvious clickbait, where it's like the greatest problem is that they made a cosmetic shop where the cosmetics are better than anything you can acquire in game. It's like,
Okay. So
this guy has not.
I'm gonna add some context to that, because so that is a Forbes article.
Yeah.
And I think there are plenty of avenues to critique Diablo, right? Diablo 4,
Yeah.
and if you want to criticize Endgame for just not having enough chase, if you want to criticize, Nightmare Dungeons as being too repetitive, absolutely. You can
Mhm.
go in, you can find data, you can back that up. But that entire article was saying that Diablo is a failure because the items in the shop look too good, and that, like, when they add a new item into the shop, they're not adding another non-purchasable one into the game. And that's the reason it sucks, was the worst real opinion as to why you shouldn't play Diablo. Like if that Forbes article, like I said, had come out with some like real actual information, which I kind of expected it would, I'd been like, okay.
Yeah.
But that one was just the cash shop, and it's not to say that the item or the cash shop is not or I should say is amazing. It isn't. I don't feel the need to buy a $20 skin, but I also understand where somebody might, and I just don't care. That's
Yeah.
not going to preclude me from playing the game. Yeah, it's
and,
that kind of stuff that's just
and I
garbage.
and I want to say, so the most common complaint about the cosmetic shop is that it exists. The second most common complaint about the cosmetic shop is that the skins themselves aren't good enough to pay for when you can find things that are just as good in the game. It's like, they're priced fairly highly. It's definitely this is definitely they're definitely going for like the luxury spending. $28 for a skin and such. Um, but it definitely is one of those ones where it's like you can find things that are just as badass looking in the game. It's something that the devs commented on before the game launched that they wanted to do, and they succeeded at that. They definitely succeeded at that. And so it's like this was like someone dragging from the bottom of the barrel. I think Echo Hack made a comment that it's like this smells like AI. That was just like an AI generated article. Let's just take some common like complaints or just like the rage bait on Reddit. Um, because
Even
that's
no, I don't know.
it's because it's a common thing that you see when you get into one of those threads where everybody is just taking any opinion that Diablo 4 bad, 300 upvotes, and that's just it. There's a lot of people in there that will just say, I can't believe that they have a cash store or that they have a cosmetic shop in a fully priced game. That's something that you see a lot. Not that like anybody actually cares, about it
It
having a cosmetic store, for a full price game because you don't have to do anything with it. Um,
it also felt like an article that should have came out 8 weeks ago and not now.
Yeah, because now it's definitely we're like I my comment was that we're in the cycle of we're at that point in the news cycle where everybody's just farming hate clicks. I think you
And
had mentioned it, as we were kind of like going into this about like going through and farming hate clicks. Because the truth of the matter is, people, I've been called shill and Blizzard fanboy for years because I usually always have like an optimistic and positive attitude towards Blizzard and such. But if I actually wanted to shill, like if I wanted to get something out of this besides a swanky hood, if I wanted to collect a paycheck, I would hate on Diablo 100% of the time because that 100% gets so much more engagement, gets so much more viewers and ad revenue and all those other types of things. Because you look at some of the biggest, most viewed content that's out there, besides officially published, streams and marketing videos and trailers and stuff like that. It's people that hate on Diablo or like dunk on Immortal or anything like that. That gets so much more engagement, so much more ability to farm like ad revenue or subscribers and stuff like that. Negativity is what sells. If we were in this for like money or anything like that, we would 100% just be taking the any opinion of Diablo just being bad. It does, and it's not even critical. Like, not it doesn't even have to have actual critical of saying that the renown grind every season is a laborious chore and should be shortened or removed completely. Spoilers. That is a valid piece of criticism, whereas Diablo 4 is bad. And okay, how are the devs supposed to action that to make it good? No, just bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
it can be infuriating. One of the things, obviously, with this podcast that we haven't ever really shied away of is providing a critique. Like we love the game, but we will point out its flaws, and we did that with Diablo 3. Obviously, it was not me running it; it was Flux, but we got a lot of crap for being overly critical of Diablo 3 before it released. And then just like with Diablo 4, the pendulum swung to being critical, right, of Diablo 3 and its flaws, which there were. And we were on the side of being more optimistic, of like, look, yeah, it's got these problems. Here's what we like, and here's what we want to see fixed. But that wasn't hate. Um, so then we became shills. And it was a very fun contrast to go from being too critical before the game released to then being shills after, which is what is kind of happening now. Now, I think the nice transition is while that dismay and malaise is lingering, we got some news today that's going to swing the pendulum back to optimism for just a little bit. Everybody who's got an opinion about Diablo is coming right back, and they're coming back with hype before they're going to swing on back to hate. Um, But for now, we get to be excited. We get to live in the hype. So what are we hyped about? Well, the season of blood, the sob.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I like a little bit of irony. We're having a sob season. Um, Side note. All right, so I'll get my side note in a second. So the big news we did today, courtesy of Gamescom, get some details about the new Diablo season, what it entails, and we're going to break those down. Um, but I like again the sob season. It's just it's so sad. Uh, okay, so we got a new season. We got a new season. Did this feel really early to you? Like, I was not expecting to hear anything. I mean, when we set this podcast up, this is not what we were going to be talking about. This feels
Um,
really early.
it does feel early, but it's also one of those ones where, like, I'm sure I haven't checked Reddit since this has been announced, but I'm sure that there's a comment out there somewhere about, oh, they're going through and they're pushing all this positive media out there to curbtail the discussions about the criticism of the game. But things like that don't happen at those time frames, because this
No.
isn't a Blizzard event. This is a third party event where they got into like the opening night show reel and all other types of stuff that all that had to have been submitted weeks ago. Like, that's types of stuff that happened a while ago. So this was already in the plans. Regardless, season one could have been the best season ever, and it could have been, blown everybody's expectations away and such, and they would still be announcing it today.
So what you're saying
You
is they
know.
knew season one was going to be a bust and they planned this ahead of time.
Yeah. It does feel early, but I think that one is just it's a product of the events in the news cycle, is that that's just the way it is. Because hey, so season I'm reading the future here. Season 3 launches, or season 2 launches October 17th. Guess when we're going to have the announcement of season 3 and the mechanics that exist with inside of it?
BlizzCon?
Yeah, 2 weeks afterwards.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so it's just the way that the news cycle is hitting them with their targeted release dates and stuff like that. It's just, will things, maybe get into a bit more of like the Diablo 3 where, like 2 months into the season and a month before the end we'll get that information, so you have a little bit more time to like focus, especially for like us as content creators and commentators and such. That it does feel a little weird that you're going through and you're already talking about the next season only a month into the previous season and such. But hey, maybe that's just the way that things are going to be.
yeah, I guess like I don't like this early. I love all the stuff we're going to talk about, but I it I maybe it's a force of habit from Path of Exile. Like you hear about the new
Hmm.
season as like at the tail end of the most
Yeah.
current one, because your time with it has waned, and then it starts building towards something new. I kind of thought maybe a month out we would hear, where it's like, okay, we've
Yeah.
had 2 months. Let's start building. Let's start hyping. Let's start talking. Whereas now we're going to go into 2 months of a slow drip. And what always happens to me with the Path of Exile League is as soon as I know what the next one is, I really don't feel a pull to play the current one. Now, there's a few
Hmm.
reasons with the new one that I will still keep playing, but um, it usually kind of sucks the life out of me where I'm like, okay, well, something new's coming. I'm going to set this aside for a bit and I'm going to go play something else because, it's almost done. Um, and I'm excited for the new one. And that was what happened with, this most recent season, right? That burnout, right? I don't want to
Yeah.
burn out of what I'm already playing
Yep.
because I know I'm going to play it again. So I want to take a break. Uh, so this, like I said, this felt premature. Totally logical though, Nine Ball. I think you've talked me off the ledge. It wasn't pre-planned, or it was pre-planned. It wasn't,
Yeah.
a knee-jerk reaction. Um, so let's hit it off the top. 5 endgame bosses.
We have to hit it off the top. Vampires.
Vampires. Oh yeah, that's right.
See,
Okay,
see, vampire. The
vampires.
season's about vampires.
Okay, let's go right up top then with the five vampiric powers. There are five vampiric powers that. So, are we going to become vampires?
That, that's I mean that's kind of like what the story trailer like alluded to is that we're gonna get bit and then we're
Yeah,
gonna turn into a vampire, but we're not gonna be bad. I mean, this is great. The 25th anniversary of Blade was yesterday, so
yeah, that's right. That's right.
I rewatched that in commemorance. I hope you all did at home as well, and if not, there's still time.
They only watched
You
Blade
amazing.
Trinity.
Sorry. Trust me, the first one will make it better. It did. It really did. But we're we get to be good guy vampires. Good girl vampires. That sounds slightly different than saying good guy, but it is it's definitely uh it
I had to
definitely
think
makes
about
it
that. That
seem that
that does
way,
sound wrong.
right? Right.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe
Rush,
that's
edit
just our
this.
misogynistic tendencies. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, no, don't like that.
yeah.
Uh,
Uh, but it's yeah, so the story trailer itself is, of course, now we're being introduced to another new character, um, whose name I have forgotten, and
but
Iris. So we're
and
introduced to a
voiced
new
by
character,
Gemma Chan.
Gemma Chan. Yep. And so your this new character Iris has been hunting vampires for a long time, but now is shocked by like the rate at which like people are turning, and now has a new ally that turned but is good. And then it cuts into the gameplay footage of all of the player characters, going through and doing more, I guess, blood themey skills because it's a bunch of like attacks and such that have like red effects and such that make it seem as if we are the ones that turned into a vampire. And I'm sure throughout the course of the season we'll cure our vampirism or something along those lines. But yeah,
Who knows? I'm really curious about this new system for the vampiric powers. Hopefully, is it five that's allocated to everyone, as opposed to like the malignant hearts, which were, you had some classic Gnostic, but then some that were specific for each class.
hmm
I don't know. Those are questions to ask down the road. But it is something new. And in tandem with that, we did get five new end game bosses, right? Five
yes. Well, new and returning
new and returning.
in-game boss. Yes.
So I'm curious where those are going to fit. That is one of the common things that we have brought up on many of these podcasts that we want to be able to fight some of the previous act bosses.
Yeah.
We want them to have some sort of meaning. Uber Lilith is nice, right? It's nice to have that, but that doesn't feel like it's enough. If we take these five and then we add it with Uber Lilith, that gives us six. Um, I would hope that there's some sort of structure, some way to get to them that involves something else, right? Not just that they're there,
hmm
not that we just have to go to that one location, but maybe there's a way to connect those nightmare dungeons. Maybe there's a way to connect Hell Tides. Maybe there's a way to connect all these other end game activities to get us to these bosses, which would be, in my opinion, the ideal scenario. Make something connect to something else, which makes me want to keep going, right? Not only am I leveling my glyphs, but I'm also getting closer to fighting Duriel again, or I'm getting closer to this vampire guy. I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah. And also, as you're mentioning, kind of like target farming, one of the other things that they are introducing apparently is a way that we can better target farm uniques and uber uniques, which, as I've said before, you can't, doesn't
No,
even matter if you actually target farm because they're not farmable. That's just
yeah.
luck. That's pure RNG
Which,
until they fix those drop rates.
oh,
Um,
and that goes back to what I was saying before about, that desire for trading.
yeah.
If there is a way for me to get what I want, even if I know it's going to take a long time, but I know there's a way for it to happen, then I'm going to be more content. Um,
Yeah.
I brought it up several times, but Tempest Roar, right? Tempest Roar is
Hmm.
this amazing item that every druid seems to want but can never get. Um, on Reddit, every single day you go on there, there's somebody posting, "I've made it to 100, never got a Tempest Roar, made it to 98, just got it." Um, if there's a way for druids, we are so ignored, to be able to target farm that, it's gonna make people a lot more happy because some builds are very much locked behind certain items, right? They may not be your
Hmm.
Shakos, but they need those to actually get into functioning. So if there's a way to make those builds come online a little bit faster, that's going to make the game more fun. Like, there's nothing worse than suffering in a build. Like, and I know apples to apples, like the goal is to be able to kill monsters quickly, right? And if I'm doing it
Yeah.
effectively with this build, it doesn't really matter, but my enjoyment is built around a different version of that. And I want to play that. And if I can't because I can't find that drop and I can't trade for it, that's a recipe for burnout. So seeing target farming was, I think, probably out of all these things, the thing I was most excited for, uh, to be able to go in and get the items that I want, even if it takes a while. I think we've played enough Diablo
But
that we are content farming the same thing for hours if we know it will pay off.
yeah, just to preach to your point. Um, I have been putting more time into Diablo since last week when I finally got a Death Speaker pendant. And so then now all of a sudden my minion build, which was struggling, was just beginning to struggle a little bit, now is smooth sailing. And if I find the Mendelin's ring, it's gonna go to the moon. If I manage to find one of those. But just getting like that one piece, and my build has now come online. I'm having fun the way I want to play. Going through and skating through with a minion build and such. Although it does feel a little bit more like a blood build, but that's, well, another time. It definitely, to the point that some of these items are just, they're awesome and they're powerful. And it was an issue that early Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls had, where, oh, you want to play a demon hunter? Well, you need those gloves that I've now forgotten, that allow you to
Sound off
summon
in the
additional
comments.
turrets. Yes, please correct. Remember, I think I didn't even find one till like season 3. Like, I could not find the gloves that allowed you to have additional turrets, in the Marauders build and such. So it was definitely,
Well, and
like,
I
it
think
was
it,
just like one of those ones where it's like, you want to do this, you want to have fun. Well, you can't, because this is a rare farm item, so you're finding like a couple per season, and that's it.
well,
And if you just don't have enough time to farm it, then, well, GG.
and it's like exacerbated just a little bit by the sacred and ancestral grind too. Like, I'm trying to get my build online. I would love to find just a sacred version of it. And then if I'm lucky enough to find a sacred version of it, well, eventually I'm going to need to get that luck to happen again and find an ancestral version of it. Um, and sometimes that layer of RNG can be so discouraging. Like, I just found this and now I know I'm going to have to search for it again, but I've already got it. That can be
Yep.
frustrating. But with target farming,
Asker and Theo.
there it
Sorry.
is.
Yeah.
Um, if we're talking about eliminating discouraging grinds, well, there's a big one that's going to be missing in our newest season. Renown.
Oh, I could cry when I saw that one.
This feels like a very much listening to the community moment with this. Essentially, that if you have completed your renown on a character that's sitting on the seasonal or eternal realm as the new season starts, it's all going over. It's not just altars, it's not just exploration, it is all of it. This feels good. This
Very
feels
good.
good.
Yep.
It, I get the logic of wanting people to do it. I think with the change in level scaling that has happened, Renown has become even more tedious. It's not to say that you can't get it done. But once you over level it, it feels frustrating because you're not getting XP or you're not getting as much XP. Um,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't feel like it's doing what it needs to. And at this point, as season two rolls around, most of us will have done it twice. Three times doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Some of
They
us have done it a little bit more because they've died.
well, because they've died a few times.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, as I said in an earlier show, like I very much appreciated the increases in renown that they made with season one. To side quests and dungeons, and I would have been okay if they kept in like I would not say no to them removing it completely, but I would have been okay with the renown grind if they like buffed it again. Give it like another like 10 or 15 renown per dungeon or per side quest. So that way it's like maybe it takes me like an hour per zone or something like that to kind of go through. Is that you need something you kind of like need something to do for 1 through 40 if you're not just kind of like do like some like stronghold I say exploits is not an exploit, but like the stronghold resets, or just farming the Domheim tunnels
yeah,
for endless amounts of time and stuff like that. If you want to vary it up a little bit, there's still stuff to do, going through just regularly doing some strongholds, some regular dungeons. And it would be fine, like if I could just do a couple of dungeons, some side quests, in each of the zones, and that's it. You're done. You're finished. Um, but I'll take this. I will definitely take this. Not having to do it again, and then just have complete freedom to do whatever that you want. Because once you get into World Tier 3, then it's just like, well, at the moment, it's just doing Nightmare Dungeons and Hell Tides, and anything that takes me out of that is detrimental to my experience or my efficiency with farming. And then so having to go back and do the side quests and do regular dungeons when I should be doing nightmare dungeons, was felt as a penalty. And so if you didn't get the whole renown grind done before 40 or whatever, then you're shooting yourself in the foot because you have to go back and do it anyways. But yeah, so this I'm 100% for. If they want to bring it back in some shape or form, I'm fine with it. It's still you get some gold, you still get some experience. Those rewards will still be there and active to unlock. So you're I want to say that it's like you still it's just like you create a new character on Eternal where you have it all done, and so you have all of those bonuses. You can click through and unlock all of them, but your strongholds still aren't done, and you don't have the waypoints. You only have the map explored and the Lilith statues collected. So you'll still start a brand new character. You'll have all those Paragon points, but you still want to go through and do all the strongholds, not just because it's a lot of experience in that 1 through 40 process, but it will give you renown to unlock a couple of those early tiers that will give you more experience to help push you into getting into the in game loop as it exists right now.
yeah, and I think from a leveling standpoint, start of the season, that sounds great, right?
Mhm.
You're going to be starting fresh anyway, unlocking those strongholds, getting those waypoints. I'm fine with that. But when you get pigeonholed into it, where you're just like, ugh, I have to do this so I can get that extra 20 Paragon. I care less about the ovals. That's just, it's nice knowing I can't gamble for uniques. I feel less inclined.
Mhm.
That could be something that would change that I'd be happy about too, even if it's this minuscule chance. If I know I have a chance at pulling a unique, um, then I'm going to want some ovals. I'm going to want to gamble. But I care less about that. I want those 20 Paragon. The second you hit 50 and you get all, 20 of them, um, plus the ones you're getting from the little statues too, it feels good. You can fill out a board and get moving as opposed to, again, slogging through more of the grind. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to see. I mean, this was what we saw with the Lilith statues and the exploration felt like it was the first start of a compromise. And I'm happy to see that they just leaned in and said, you know what? Fine. we're not going to do this anymore, which
Yep.
is good. Yay for the death of renown. I don't hate it as a concept. Maybe it comes back in some different form. Toss it back to the drawing
Yeah.
board a little bit. Um, Speaking of back to the drawing board, gems. Gems. We're not changing
Yay.
gems, but they're not going to be littering the ground and clogging up our inventory anymore, thankfully. Um, we've heard this was coming. It's
Hmm.
been touched on, but I think sometimes just knowing, like, there's always the possibility of like, oh, well, it turns out it was more complicated than we thought. So this feels like a good confirmation. Gems, separate system, going to be not in your inventory. I think this is a win.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Nobody
it was. Yeah, it's
is like,
definitely.
man, I want more gems in my inventory.
Yeah, because that was one of those ones where it's like I had quite a few stash spaces, filled up from having like 50 stacks of flawless gems, in Eternal, and then now in the season, I have no gems. like I okay, I've got my stars all set up and all my gear. That's it. I don't have to pick up gems ever again. All right, we're good. All right, so this is definitely a welcome change. Frees up stash space. I still would like something to do with the gems. That would still be nice, but hey, it helps one of the issues, which is stash space and inventory management.
Yeah,
And this
I'm
is relieving, even just getting one stash space back from not having the gyms. It's an improvement, so it's nice,
yeah,
definitely.
there to eliminate the frustration you get when you accidentally pick one up. You're like, ah, that could have been
Mhm.
something better. Now I have to dump this on the ground and hope I don't. Especially like if you play on controller, um, sometimes just
Oh
randomly
yeah,
grabbing those, it just kind
because
of
it kind of like auto zooms to
yeah.
whatever is the item closest to you. Yeah.
And I'm moving quickly, and I'm like I open up my inventory. It's like I got like 5 gems in here. What am I gonna do with this? Uh,
It's
so
like, when did I pick up regular rubies? I don't even,
right,
I
I'm
don't
not gonna
want
use this.
those.
This is shit.
Yeah.
Um, so as we talk about gems usability, we're getting a couple reworks, and let's hit the biggest one first. Resistance. So
Mm-hmm.
we've known resistances haven't been working in the way that they need to, and armor
Yes.
has become king.
Yes.
So I think like out of all the drips that we're gonna get, this is the one that feels like the big one. Because I think it has the potential to shake things up the most, and it could go one way or the other. Um, we've all become very accustomed to not thinking about resistance and only thinking about
Mm-hmm.
armor. And how they tackle it is going to be a big question for me. It, if they go too heavy, suddenly we're going to hear a bunch of outcry about how gearing has become impossible, content is significantly harder, um, and that people need different loadouts for different elements because that's the only way we can play the game. Or they have a pretty more nuanced approach. Balancing a resist becomes something that is manageable. Armor's still pretty important, but they have a good balance. That would be my hope. But my
Yeah.
fear is that resistance becomes like the pendulum swings again too much and resistance becomes king in the worst of possible ways. So I think this is the one thing I'm most curious about how they're actually going to tackle.
I I would not be surprised if there are a couple of patches involved with tweaking those numbers, because it is going to be, there's a lot of math that's involved and no one likes math. Mathematicians don't like math. So it's that one. I'm gonna give them the room to make some mistakes at the beginning. Um, just because I know that it's going to be a lot for them to kind of like zero in, because obviously the want of the community is that you're going to fix resistances and my character will be tankier for it. That
Yes.
you'll fix resistances, and my character as it is right now, that has kind of been playing without any care of resistances, is going to be tankier. Those resistances are going to kick in, and I somehow ended up, because all of my jewelry has like shadow resist, and then I have like one piece, I have like boots that the bad stat was like shadow resist, so I have 60% shadow resistance. So I'm just going to walk through shadow damage and not care, period. Because all of a sudden it all came online, it's all good, and I got like a ton of extra resistances and stuff like that. um but that is what the the community is hoping for and expecting. I'm sure that like closer to what we're going to get is they're going to nerf armor. Not like a huge nerf or anything like that, but it's going to be one of those ones where, well, we have rebalanced and rebalanced the way that resistances work, so they're not a whole bunch of um, uh, dividends being stacked on top of one another, that each new layer that you add on is reducing its overall contribution to the whole, and that is going to be a more like linear system for the resists. And so like across the board, because we've done this like resistance system, your survivability would have increased by 30%, 40%. And so we've nerfed armor by 20%. So you'll still have a net gain. You'll still have a net gain in resistances, but now you have to kind of properly gear for it. Because you're the way that your character is now, you've completely forsaken resistances. You've skipped all of the resistance nodes and all other types of stuff. You've put all of your eggs into the armor basket, and your character now is squishier because you kind of like have to rebalance things a little bit. You kind of have to pay attention to those resist numbers on your rings. You might now want to find a level 800 deckless as opposed to just using a 725, because the all the other stats are the same, and resistance is like the only thing that kind of like scales up a little bit. And you also now have to kind of like rebalance your paragon tree because you can't ignore those resistance nodes anymore. And so you kind of have to go back and retweak things. And so with a little bit of work, you will end up tankier than what you are now. But you're not your character that has now at the moment forsaken all resistances is now squishier because we tried to rebalance things. And
That
that's what my expectation is.
yeah, that sounds pretty logical. I would hope that with a resistance rework that then also leads to maybe reduction of affix bloat. Um,
Mm,
to make gearing easier, and maybe that's also an enchanting rework as well, um, to make it easier on the player to try to achieve resistances that they want on gear. Um,
yeah,
because right now it is a financial burden to reroll gear. And then when you're adding
yeah.
and trying to get the right resists, that could lead to a lot of frustration. Now, it's like we're kind of here's that pendulum swinging back. We're becoming too critical of things we don't even know about, but it does highlight some of the importance of getting this right, because it
Hmm.
will breed frustration. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of sorcerers out there who are going to be very excited um, to have one
Yeah.
of the key defining things that they have within their class actually be functional. Um, but outside of them being fully functional, all of us are going to suffer. So hopefully it's done in a manner that is logical.
I would say that this would be the perfect opportunity for crafting in Diablo 4, where you can, instead of having to like randomly re-roll for trying to get a resist roll on a piece of gear, that you can just craft something. You think about, safety items from Diablo 2, where you could just specifically go in and get some like, all res gear. The rest of the stats on the item were anybody's guess, but you could at least kind of like get a new piece of gear and guarantee like an all res, or a hit recovery or something along those lines.
And
It'd be nice if there was something that you could do with the crafting recipe to just give you a random It can even have like a 725 to 800 item or something along those lines that will always roll shadow resist and then three other random affixes, or even just something to do with the enchantress where I can give up the ability to re-roll stats on this item for the rest of its existence, just so that way I can force slot in like all res or something on it. I'm happy with the way that the other three affixes on this item are. Never want to touch it again. I just want to put all res on it, call it a day.
Yeah, that would be nice. I would love the ability to make an item in some way. I'm kind of, as you're bringing this up, it makes me think of like crafting recipes in Path of Exile, in which,
Yeah.
there's no cube. You sell items to a merchant and then they spit out something different. If
Hmm.
if they don't want to implement, some system for crafting like that, even having simple recipes, I'm gonna sell
Hmm.
you, these couple of blue rings in the hopes that you will sell me then a prismatic ring, right? Um, that would be great. I would totally be on board with that. That would seem cool. And then there's another layer, right? Oh, hell, make them white rings. Make them make white items have a purpose. Uh,
Yeah.
so now I'm then thinking about things I'm picking up, like, oh yeah, I wanted to make some gloves with poison resist. There's some white gloves right there. Let's make that happen. Uh,
Yeah.
Another layer, another layer. So this to me feels big. We've known this was in the works, but
Hmm.
I'm I would hope sooner rather than later they're going to put that out. And I'm going to say something that I think would be super helpful. A PTR for it. Resists
Yeah.
like that seem like a big deal. You don't have to include the new season stuff, but do a PTR where we're testing resists. You take your same character, put them up against the same content, and then give feedback because
Yeah.
this feels like a big thing to do.
Totally. Yeah. Um, this is just going to be one of those ones where it's nice. It's another avenue in order to go through power up your character. It's another stat that you kind of like want to care about. And then the other thing that getting resist right, for me, the next logical step into properly implementing the a resist system is then have bosses that force you into specking resists, because that's like one of those ones where it's like obviously you don't want to do it in like you don't want to do it in something like a system like Nightmare Dungeons. You don't want to do it in the campaign. But what you can do that for is Uber bosses. When you have that small selection, we're gonna have six Uber bosses in order to complete in season two, as opposed to like the two that we have in season one. Um,
One and a
that
half.
one and a half, yeah. Which the fight was fun. Vasharan was fun,
Yeah, yeah.
but have bosses that kind of require you to spec into like resistances, and maybe you do have like I have these rings I'm going to swap out because I really need ice resistance, for this ice boss. It was something that so Immortal didn't do it in terms of like resistances and such, because it didn't have that, but uh Immortal had like elemental themed bosses with their raids and such. So there was like an ice boss that would like freeze you, and then there was like a fire boss that would be like shooting gouts of fire all over the place and such. And so it's even though the stereotype has been like done to death for decades, but it still is cool. It's an interesting mechanic, and it forces you to like keep different sets of gear, that kind of like it's making you think about your gear more and your choices. It gives you more things to hunt and chase down, but having kind of like some uber bosses that require you to just gear differently, without having to like completely change your spec, completely change your skill, allocations and such, which of course is a completely different conversation. But just having something that makes me want to prioritize these resistances over these other ones. And not every boss has to be that way. We don't have to have a fire, a lightning, a shadow, an ice boss and such. You can have just regular bosses that force you to think about the game in different aspects, but you can always just throw in an elemental boss that kind of forces you to gear differently from 99% of the rest of the content in the game.
Uh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. It would be nice to kind of have those choices, and I think that works in tandem. Like, when are you willing to do that? You're willing to do that when fighting that boss will lead to a good reward. Like, it's worth it to
Yeah.
have this set of gear, and that's where that target farming hopefully can then kind of fill the gap of like, yeah, I got to farm a bit to try to, bring up my poison resist, but I got a pretty good chance at Shaco if I can just keep going, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's that chase. And I think, we go back to kind of the front end, as people are falling out of Diablo, it's the lack of the chase. The core,
Hmm.
the core of the game is solid. I don't think you get the reviews that Diablo does, um, just on name alone, right? The core of the game is solid. The play, the feel. It's just as you kind of progress, the chase falls off, and the more things that
Hmm.
they add in, the less that becomes an issue. The more you want to kind of keep going. So all for it. Now, in tandem with resists, we're getting a few other works: vulnerability, overpower, crit. Those are all things that they tried to kind of tackle at the when they did the maligned patch that caused its own campfire chat of apologies. Um, the mea culpa fire chats. Um, I'm curious on these as well. That it does feel like, hey, we're gonna go back and look at it. It feels like a major shift, but it's something we've seen before. We've known that people that they've talked about. There's been too much emphasis on these things that they want to kind of claw that back and shift it out to different attributes. So I'm kind of curious where that will end up going as well. But let's end with what I think is a huge life improvement. Um,
Hmm.
we're gonna get a stash search, guys. We're gonna
Yep.
finally be able to search our stash. Ugh. The amount of times I've gotten
It's,
lost in my stash looking for one thing that I can't remember, like the one item. I've got multiple aspects there. I'm trying to find the right level for my druid that just died, and I'll spend 10 minutes like, and it's back on tab one, and I missed it.
yeah.
I'm so excited.
It's gonna be nice. It's definitely gonna be nice because I can tell you, back during that 100 grind on some of those weekends, just staying up super late into the evening and being like, okay, I threw some items into the stash because I wanted to look at them later, but I didn't want to interrupt the dungeon slamming, so I put just threw some items in the stash, and then now I have to try and find it, and I'm so tired, I literally can't see the difference between a unique and a legendary. Like that orange and brown are just like they're when you're awake and fully cognizant, sure, you can tell the difference. When you're sleep deprived and maybe a couple of drinks into the evening, at that line gets blurred. So definitely just having the ability to not even like obviously it's both it's cool because we're gonna be able to search, but also filter. So
hmm
you can also just like quick filter. I'm hoping that means just hit. I want to see uniques. Okay, there they are. But also being able to search. We don't know the details on it because like in Diablo 3, you can only search by the name of the item. So you can just type in Tasker and look for all of the Tasker and Theos, that are in your stash tab. I would hope that they also get a little bit more and that I can type in, like Vuln and then look for any of the items that have like vulnerability damage on them. Um, I'm sure it might not be in this one, but I'm sure it's something that they can add in, later as they will continue to work on and improve the functionality because they've told us time and time again that they're committed in order to continue to refine these quality of life changes and things like that, to make the game better.
Uh, yeah, and kind of echoing what we were talking about before, if like resists become this thing that you need to kind of have those different loadouts for, having a search functionality will be helpful for that. Um,
Yeah.
And hopefully it is that robust where you can search by affix and not just name, because that's not going to help very much. Um, Anything we missed? I feel like there's a lot. There was a lot there. I don't think so.
Uh, yeah,
I took
Diablo
notes.
3
I like
GTR, yeah, the Diablo
notes.
4, yeah, the new Diablo 4 Season 2 vampires.
Vampires
More
got that.
vampires. We
Hmm.
talked about Armored Core.
We did talk about Armor Core.
I got the Blade mention in.
You did.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like we nailed it. I guess the one thing that's missing. When do you think we're going to get the cow level? We're going into
that
season two.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that are out there because there's like the whole conspiracy because like in Skosglen you have like the cow head shaped map area, and there's like the data miners have found items they're supposed to interact with things, and everyone's going through and trying to figure stuff out. And like Blizzard got really good at it with World of Warcraft about having not not timed but keyed decrypt things in the game code based on being able to successfully stuff because there's like secret Easter egg hunts in World of Warcraft that involve like insane levels of complexity that some stuff they discovered like in expansion later, and stuff. So you know, maybe it's not yet implemented. Maybe it is, and just no one's cracked the code yet. Because we're talking about stuff that's literally taken like WoW players like months or years in order to actually like finish and solve some of these puzzles that they've added in. And Blizzard themselves does not talk about it or like give
No.
hints.
Um,
Yeah,
which is fair, but I feel like there's been enough playtime that if it was in the game, we would know.
maybe
I
because
don't, yeah,
there's playtime, but like some of that stuff like in WoW I have no idea how people like even thought of doing some of the things that were required to unlock the stuff. I think I did one for like a unicorn mount or something, and this was stuff that people had already figured out, and it still took almost like 10 hours of playtime to successfully fully do like
hmm,
all the things that are involved. And that was spread amongst multiple people because there was one that took me like I think it was like 2 hours or something of farming in like one of the zones where you had to like go and like kill something and then run back to this NPC in a short amount of time and go kill something else that in they're like specific mobs that will only appear in a gigantic zone when you have an item. So you have to like start with this one mob, kill it, get this item, and then find a vendor to trade it to get another that then unlocks another mob somewhere else in the zone. But you got like 10 minutes to kill it.
hmm.
And so you have to like start over from the beginning if you fail. And it was just like it's like this is like it took over an hour to complete, and I had a guide.
Huh.
you know how long did it take these people literally searching this entire zone like 10 minutes at a time? you know
I would hope
so
that's not the
it's
case for Diablo because, part of the cow level is running it mindlessly,
yeah.
not taking a decade to open one portal and then get swarmed by your bovine death.
Yeah, some of them, is some of so like that particular one, like you can help. Oh, it wasn't a unicorn. It was the now that I'm remembering it, it's the jellyfish mount. I got the jellyfish mount, and that was one of those ones that like once you completed certain steps, you would get an item that would permanently allow you to like redo it.
Okay.
But it's like it didn't really help because it required like a full party in order to do it, so you still had to be with other people to do it.
Hmm.
So you couldn't just like I get the item and then I'll run you through it. You still have to complete one of the four quadrants of the thing to do. You know,
No, thank you.
it was like some interesting stuff. So I'm pretty sure that it might be complicated to go through and unlock. Think about the cow level, or not the like the shoot. Whimsydale,
Whimsyshire?
Whimsyshire.
No.
Yeah, because that one required quite a bit of farming and such to do. But then once you did it, you're done. You can just
Right.
farm it. So I think
And there were,
probably whatever they end up having.
you also had goblins too that would open the portal, the little
That came
blue
later.
ones. True. So we did have
Yeah,
some ways.
that
Um,
actually came a lot later. They didn't introduce rainbow goblins until like that was a couple of seasons into Reaper of Souls
yeah, I
before they
suppose.
even introduced that. Yeah,
Um, unpopular opinion. I thought Whimsyshire was hilarious. I it has a special place in my heart. Um,
those rainbows, man, still causing nerds to rage.
the
13 years later,
the killing of the pink and purple
15 years
unicorns
later.
was hilarious,
Yeah,
and I thought it was awesome. Um, anyways, we're going long from a podcast that was not initially meant to go like this.
you're
But
letting me
there,
talk. I'm sorry.
no, this is great. Because again, we talked about it earlier that pendulum has shifted. We're back in a hype mode. We've got something on the horizon to kind of speculate on. And I would argue more than just hype of like, oh, it's something new and shiny. There's there are things that are coming that we know we need. I don't know if the vampiric powers are going to be good or build changing. I don't know if the end game bosses are going to be amazing or shape. If they're all like Uber Lilith, I'm not going to see them. But like target farming, that is a massive change.
Great change.
Not having to do renown is a massive change. A gem tab of its own, resistance changes. Um, those are all things to be excited about because you know what they bring. And then you can
Yep.
get excited for the stuff that are the unknowns down the road, but that is exciting. So we got some good
Yep.
stuff ahead. And, people can start coming back to Diablo 4 because it's not really going anywhere. Um, it's going to keep getting better.
Yep.
But let's close it out as we always do with a moo, moo, moo,
Moo, moo, moo, moo, moo.
moo.